President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved the new minimum wage for civil servants to be 70,000 naira, which he promised to review after every 3 years. Good morning and welcome to the Dailies on Equa Television, where we keep you updated with some of the happenings from the Nigerian paper. I am Selai Shadasho. Do remember you can join us on Facebook by dropping your views and stories of interest to you. I'll be doing the program alongside Rachel Tanzi. Good morning.
Good morning,
How you
Sele.
doing?
I'm fine, and you?
Great. How about the weather? It's raining, it's
Yes,
cold as
Sele.
well.
I mean, this is one weather that you either love it or hate it, but then the rain has come and then there's nothing we can do about it.
Of course, it's that season of the year, so we embrace
Yes.
it and enjoy it. Well, let's go into the papers, starting with the Voice of Liberty.
On the Voice of Liberty, the big story, the Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria declares state of emergency in broadcast media sector, calls for regulatory relief to prevent shutdown. We have in a critical development, the Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria has declared the state of emergency in the broadcast media sector, urgently appealing to President Bola Tinubu for a stimulus package intervention. Federal government obtains over $751 million from $1.5 billion recently approved World Bank loan. 423 billion naira probe Kaduna Assembly asks court to dismiss El Rufai suit. On autonomy, Senate moves to establish local government electoral commission. 22 states, 96 towns, communities across Nigeria at risk in new flood alert. In Dumesak, Akpabio has reduced 10th Senate to federal government parastatal, a statement from Lukman. Federal government targets 50% tax on banks' FX profits to fund new minimum wage. While we accepted 70,000 naira as minimum wage, this is coming from organized labor. And that's all the news on Voice of Liberty newspaper.
On Daily Independent newspaper, 31 million housing units in Nigeria substandard, says Housing Minister. And I think this is following some of the review that have been done where we've seen a number of collapsed buildings. And I think this is where the minister is talking about some of these buildings are actually substandard. You can read more detailed in the paper. JAM asks varsity to admit candidates with 140 minimum score. More detail found on the paper. And I recall, Rachel, there was a time that it's either you have 180 or nothing. And even 180 was for those who wanted to do something related to art. Yes. So if you're doing anything beyond that, you have to score 200 and above. Yes. And I wonder, we keep having the JAM score going down and down and down and down. I wonder why. Because believe me, I know it's just a way of accommodating students so they could get to be admitted. But what is happening, to me personally, it looks more like we're trying to bring down our educational standard to some extent. Because for polytechnics, it's 100. And then for varsities, it's 140. That is what it entails. So that means regardless of what you want to study, that is the JAM score. Well, that is what JAM is stating concerning the new, cutoff mark for those who want to get admission into the universities.
So I believe that for an examination that the total score is over 400, I think anything less than 160 is very, very low. It's really us lowering our educational standard. But I believe this is also a situation where nobody wants to do their job. We always want the easy way out. Why is JAM not reviewing curriculum? Why are they not reviewing the way they give the test? Why are they not reviewing their questions? Why are they not reviewing the testing method? Why are we not sitting down and correcting the real problem rather than just adjusting the scores from what is a pass and what is a fail? Why are we always taking the easy way out when we are confronted with certain issues? I just hope that the necessary thing be done, because 140 is even below. You can take students with a lower score than 140, you can admit them. That is us reducing the standard of our test, and it's not going to do us any good. It's not going to help the educational system. It's not going to help the standard of education. It's not going to help the quality of students that we will have at the end of the day. Even when we were going to read social sciences at that time, we were thriving to score over 200, and anything less than that you felt like a failure. That was
True.
in our days when we wrote the jam examination. So I just hope that the real work
Will be
should be
done.
done rather than just always taking the easy way out, which is just to reduce the cutoff point when it comes to pass and fail.
Of course, of course. Let's look forward to seeing that being done. Still on Daily Independent newspaper, the big story here is saying mixed reaction trees federal government labor 70,000 naira minimum wage. The writer flowing that workers say they can't survive on 70,000 naira as minimum wage. Accused labor leaders of compromise says this is a sellout. Analysts say increasing salary will provoke other market forces, ask the federal government to consider development of public infrastructure and others. Tinubu pledges reviewing minimum wage after every 3 years and then assures protesting SANU and NASU of payment of their withheld salaries. More detail concerning that can be found on page 29. CBN OK's forex sale for BDCs for invisible transaction. Police officer killed in shootout that treated arrival of Shaibu at the Benin airport, where we're seeing that a police operative died as well as some other people were affected. More detail can be found on page 7. Drama as police SANU NASU officials clash at the Abuja protest. Detail found on page 6. Senate moves to establish local government electoral commission. Indume sack our democracy at risk, lament Atiku and Lukman. We know promoters of planned nationwide protests, says the federal government, and Silva appealed needless distractions, says Governor Dire. Dita found on page 6. And here's a picture story where we can see some of the organized labor leaders, where we can see C4, we can also see Ajero and the president and other people that were present during the negotiation. Quite a contradiction looking at some of their facial expression. But you can do well to get the Daily Independent and read detail of stories of interest to you.
On the Punch newspaper, minimum wage. National Assembly gets bill Tuesday as Tinubu Labour agree on 70,000 naira. Federal government says minimum wage for review every 3 years. Labour leaders justify new salary. President directs payment of NASU, SSA and youth withheld salaries. OPS rejects electricity tariff. Details can be found on page 2. Concerning crude supply, federal government continues fuel importation as reps probe IOCs. Reps plead against anti-government protests accept 50% salary cut. CBN resumes BDC dollar sales, naira weakens to 1,570 naira to a dollar. APC knocks PDP governors, military mobilizes against mass protests. Customs intercept 3.6 billion naira bulletproof jackets and drugs in Ogun. Unilorin student dies, others injured in campus crash. And we have a 423 billion naira probe. Everify alleges Bayas 6 case transfer. More details can be found on page 13, and that's all the news on the Punch newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, let's start with the minimum wage, where we're seeing Labour agrees to 70,000 naira as lawmakers slash pay for 6 months. Here we have federal government organized labor OK, the wage review, and then NECA, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, and others meet, ask the federal government to support businesses for easy compliance. Now here we're seeing Nigeria's minimum wage starting from 2019 down to now. As of the dollar, it was $88, and then also we're seeing in 2020 it was $79. Then the cost of a bag of rice was actually 26,000 naira at 2020. Now let's look down at 2024. We're seeing that the value is actually at $45, and then we're seeing that a bag of rice is 85,000 naira. Now, it's nothing even compared with the new minimum wage, and no wonder we're seeing Nigerians saying they cannot survive on this. And I remember, Rachel, you've taken your time over this months that we've been seeing the back and forth concerning the new minimum wage, which we're saying if we're going to look at it from what our naira was equivalent to the dollar and then what it is, and then we're seeing that it's kept depreciating.
Of
If
course.
you take a look at it from 2019 when it was last reviewed to now, which is at $45, and then we're seeing that we mostly use the bag of rice to make the comparison
That's
because we know that
because,
is the mostly consumed food in
yes,
Nigeria
that's
now. And there's just this mixed reaction, Rachel, whether we like it or not. In fact, from yesterday, when I saw it, I just knew that this was going to be the reaction coming from Nigeria, that this is a sellout. From
yes.
250,000 naira, you are settling for 70, not even up to half of the amount. And of course, we see here they're saying the reason they settled for it was because the president has promised to review this after every 3 years. And I do not know how Nigerians are supposed to cope. Here we're seeing manufacturers even complaining the environment, businesses, electricity, tariff, and many other things that are contributing factors. So you just can't help but wrap your head around this new minimum wage.
I mean, Sela, if labor is stupid, I don't think Nigerians are. 250 is the recent. Labor started at 600
Right.
plus thousand, Sela. We're looking at almost 700. In fact, labor started with saying 1 million, thereabout, when they did the whole breakdown of what a Nigerian should get and all of that. But I think the most that the most popular that the labor was settling for before they went down to 250 was about 615,000 naira, if I can remember, and then coming down to 70,000. Sele, I think our speculation will have probably come to an end, because from day one, behind the scenes, you and I have always talked about how much we know eventually the federal government will agree and settle for when it comes to minimum wage, and it was 70,000. And
So
I
we're
mean,
not
if people get
surprised.
rewarded for predictions, I think we would have
Of
gotten a
course.
reward by now concerning predicting it, because we said it will be 70,000. Looking at the metrics of how things have been regarding minimum wage, when you look at it, you know that it will take the special grace of God, so if I must put it that way, for our minimum wage to have been anything above what it is. And for labor to go from 250, which was the recent one, to 70,000, yes, it feels like a sellout. But I also think labor is tired, the federal government is tired, and they just had to come
To
to
an
an
end.
agreement. Exactly. They had to conclude this issue, and then we move. But I started with a statement that if labor is stupid, I don't think Nigerians are. The reason is agreeing that there will be a review 3 years, after 3 years. 3 years from now is basically when the kickoff for campaigns and all of that will start. Because if we are going to count, we're looking at 2025, 26, 2027.
So election
I
will
don't
be the
think
matter of the
President
day.
Bola Ahmed Tinubu's concern in 2027 will be reviewing minimum wage. I think it will be trying to come back for a second term. Looking at, there is a bill to pass concerning a 6 year one term and all of that. We don't know if that bill will pass. So we don't know if President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is going to be 6 years as president. All we know right now is 4 years, and the fourth year going to be the third year for another review
Of
for
the minimum
minimum
wage.
wage. What is Labour thinking? Do they actually believe that 3 years from now there's going to be another minimum wage review? I don't think so. And by God's grace, we will wait and see if truly, we know the government of Nigeria by now. It's easy to predict them. There's literally a pattern that could be, most especially when it comes to workers' welfare. It was easy for us to predict that minimum wage was not going to be above 70,000 naira. And here we are, correct, right. The federal government have proved us right. Talk more of reviews after 3 years. On what basis? Okay, imagine if the federal government is able to curb inflation, that is to minimize it, or let's say our value as against the dollar gain, a naira gains some value. There's not going to be any
New
review.
review.
This review is on the basis of inflation continuing. And who wants inflation to continue? It will be a failure on the side of the government if inflation to continue. However, inflation will continue because by nature inflation goes up. Are we going to see another review or not? Well, yes, it is a sellout on a lot of levels, but I think that a conclusion had to be made and 70,000 should not be too much for the operational private sector. I believe it shouldn't be too much for governors
to
and
pay.
most especially the federal government. I think this is a point where there won't be talks of retrenchment, there won't be talk of 600,000 people losing their job. This figure is not good, but it is enough to not let people lose their jobs. We
And
can
we know
put
that
it
even
that
before
way.
the review, there are already states that were paying beyond that. They're paying more than
Yes,
70,000
yes.
naira, even before the review. So just like you said, in as much as number of Nigerians and workers will not be happy, but I believe that this will actually help the governors who have been complaining. And I hope that in this review, my concern over the years have been the local government areas that
Yeah.
are always left out. So
Yeah.
just like you rightly mentioned, our concern have been the private sector not doing what they are supposed to, because we remember they were insisting on 62,000 naira.
Yes.
So right now it's 70. Let us see how many private institutions are willing to review their
Let's see.
salaries. Still on the Guardian newspaper, 50% windfall tax, shareholders dumb bank stock seek policy reversal. Fresh FX crisis, Naira depreciation forces CBN to resume BDC funding. Efe Babalola urges the federal government to close down mushroom substandard varsities and others. Reps in rowdy session over alleged link of opposition to planned protests. End of an era, reading culture suffers as legacy libraries rot, vanish in states. And I think this has been going on for a very long time. We have this poor culture of reading in Africa, especially in Nigeria. And that's why it's been said that if you want to hide something from a black man, we've heard that saying before, you should put it in a book. And that is true. We can see libraries are being abandoned, maybe because we've taken it into being, we have all that we need on us, gadgets and all of that. We've gone to digital. Well, you can read that on page 4 and 5. Senate introduces bill to establish federal agency for local government elections. Sean Japa syndrome prepare for leadership, Ola Opa tells youth. Dangote refinery yet to be licensed, operations not curtailed, says the MMDPRA. Concerning Idume's case, reps back the motion as Atiku, CUPP and others fault attack on democracy. Detailed on page 6, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On Daily Sun newspaper, local government autonomy, Senate moves to scrap SIECs, introduces bill on LG Electoral Commission. Labour opens up on agreed 70,000 naira minimum wage, reaches truce with federal government. Why I intervene, a statement from President Tinubu. Kalu comments all parties. Details can be found on page 25. On UTME Varsities Poly College of Education fixed minimum admissible score. We have 331,208 jostled for 66,386 medicine and pharmacy. More details can be found on page 6. Labour fumes as police bar varsity workers from protesting in Abuja, threatens major industrial action. Atiku accuses National Assembly of supporting executive recklessness, says executive legislature on holy alliance compromising democracy. Celebration in Bielsa as appeal court affirms Diri's election. Airline operators deny media report on alleged indebtedness to lessors, describe report as malicious and defamatory. Justice, inclusivity, security key to renewing Nigerians' patriotic zeal, a statement from Uzodinma. More details can be found on page 6. On hardship, reps offer half salary for 6 months, beg masses not to embark on protest. Federal government introduces new secondary school curriculum in September. More details can be found on page 6. We have a picture story where we can see Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos, and we have his Imo State counterpart Hope Uzodinma and Chairman Yoruba Tennis Club Pro Chief Olukunle, and we have left Senior Advocate of Nigeria during a lecture titled "Where Are the Nigerians?" A study on patriotism and citizenship delivered by Uzodinma in Lagos yesterday. That's all the news on Daily Sun newspaper.
Nigerian News Direct minimum wage. Labour federal government agree on 70,000 naira as Tinubu pledges 3-year review. To support labour with 36 CNG buses to ease workers' cost of living, we can't pay 70,000 naira without government support coming from private sector. Data found on page 2. NMDPRA accuses indigenous producers of substandard petroleum products. And we have NDLEA induce Optiva Capital Chairman CEO as WADA ambassadors. Under 18 admission ban, federal government directive sports stakeholders debate. And we have mixed reaction as reps have salary for 6 months, and questions will be what is the Senate doing about the hardship as well. Ogun commiserate construction of Alabola, Uki or Route 3 routes, 3 other roads. You can find that on page 21. Access Bank joined NGX to launch Impact Board. An alleged $180,000 fraud only disowned marriage call for arrest of accuser. You can find that on page 21. We have 2 picture stories on the front page. You can do well to get the paper to read detail of any of the story that is of interest.
On New Telegraph, Tinubu Labour agree on 70,000 naira minimum wage, reduces period of review to 3 from 5 years. President orders Finance Budget Minister to resolve issue with SSANU and NASU as Labour urges government not to cut major national protests, demands only indigents benefit from student loans. And we have why we accepted federal government's offer coming from the NLC. Kalu Lutz Tinubu Labour Minister for resolving minimum wage impasse. More details can be found on page 2 and 3. On Forex crisis, CBN doses tension, sells Forex to BDCs at 1,450 naira to a dollar. Naira strengthens to 1,566 to a dollar. You can start with the details on the front page. South Africa simplifies visa process for Nigerians. Why many Nigerians can't die for the country, coming from Uzodimai. You might want to find details on page 30. On Google poll, 246 applicants failed Beaver's accreditation test in Edo and Ondo, a report from INEC. With you, Nigeria has greater future, Obi assures youths. Still on the paper on hardship, reps donate 432 million naira to vulnerable Nigerians, cut salaries by 50% for 6 months. On admission, JAMPEX cut-off marks for varsities at 140, polytechnics and others at 100. We have a study that says ultra-processed foods linked to autoimmune disease. More details can be found on page 26, and that's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
On the Daily Times newspaper, illegal mining, military police not involved. CDS IGP tells the reps this is coming in the paper concerning illegal mining. Data found in the paper. House of Rep members agreed to reduce their salaries for 6 months to tackle hardship. JAM releases cutoff mark for 2024-2025 admission. Federal government will complete inherited project in spite of fund challenges coming from Hobumai. As well, we are having Labour accepts federal government offer of 70,000 naira as new minimum wage. Say promise of a 3-year wage review by federal government particularly appeal to workers. Why I had to intervene in the negotiation coming from President Tinubu. Atiku accuses Tinubu government of exhibiting despotate trait, says National Assembly is enabler of executive recklessness. And then on Bayelsa governorship, appeal court affirms Governor Dire as the duly elected governor. You can find that on page 10. We have a picture story where we can see NEMA Sokoto operation officer visited Aliu Wapco Modern Primary and Junior Secondary School Sokoto to enlighten them on proper waste management and danger of indiscriminate dumping of refuge. And I think this is a very great and welcome idea. And that's all on Daily Times newspaper.
On the Matrix newspaper, NGX delays Niger Insurance PLC, two other companies for non-compliance with standards. On transfer, PSG reach agreement with Napoli to buy Osimhen. Atiku Dele Momudu warned Tinubu concerning Ndume democracy being compromised by an unholy alliance between executive and legislature. Statement from Atiku. We have Ursula von der Leyen wins second term as European Commission president. Shaibu Apebolo escaped dead as gunmen attack convoy in Edo. Policeman dies. The big story, new minimum wage truce at last. Federal government Labour agree on 70,000 naira minimum wage while we accepted federal government 70,000 naira offer. Statement from organized labor. Wage to be reviewed every 3 years, coming from the federal government and Labour. CBN mandates BDCs to cap forex profit at 1.5%. JAMPEX University admission cutoff marks at 140, Polytechnics at 100, and also College of Education at 100. Lagos Chamber of Commerce urges governors to replicate livestock ministry. Deyemi Okanlowan from villain to hero. More details can be found on page 15, a picture story breakthrough at last, where we can see the TUC President Festus Osifo, NLC President Joe Ajero, President Bola Tinubu, and Minister of State for Labor in Kiruka at the State House after the negotiation in Abuja. And that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
On Vanguard newspaper, why fuel price may double as subsidy cost rises. Why fuel price may double as subsidy cost rises, detailed on page 19. And a power bill has reduced Senate to federal government. Parasata Lukman and the ex-APC chief tide is saying that CBN resumes the dollar sales to BDCs, halt Naira depreciation. On hardship, NLC CSO unimpressed as reps cut salaries by 50% for 6 months. Minimum wage, which is the big news on the paper. Federal government Labour settle for 70,000 naira OPS lease conditions. We are accepting it with mixed feelings because of the economy, coming from Ajero. Minimum wage law to be reviewed every 3 years. Tinubu to submit executive bill to National Assembly next week. We can't pay without federal government support, coming from the operational private sector. NLC holds NEC meeting today. Reps to expectate action on bill. This is coming from the Speaker Abbas. Detail found on page 5. Oluibadan stood, I'm not opposed to Lakoja's ambition, coming from Makinde. You can find that on page 8. After protest, federal government makes U-turn on 18 years benchmark for admission into varsity and others. And on sport, FIFA ranking Super Eagles drop 1 step. More detail in the paper. We have Tinubu meets the Labour leaders and others, which is the picture story here. And we have other stories in the paper which I believe will be of interest. So you can do well to get the paper and read more detail. But then before we continue, let's take a time out. Quite a lot of stories of interest. We having the JAM cutting down the cutoff mark, which was initially 160, and then right now it's coming down to 140, and then 100 for polytechnics and college of education. And then at last we're seeing that finally there is a new minimum wage, which happens to be 70,000 naira. In as much as we're seeing that operational private sector are saying that they can do this, except the federal government will come in and help. We're also seeing the other stories in the paper, which we'll love you to go through. When we come back, we will continue the paper review. Please stay tuned with us.
meritocracy is the theory that common people know what they want and deserve to get it good and hard. Join me every Friday, 7 p.m. on National Talk for analysis as well as in-depth perspective on issues as they unfold in and around Nigeria, as well as an opportunity to add your voice.
Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, the program is the Dailies, and we have been looking at a number of stories on the paper where we're seeing truths at last concerning the new minimum wage, and then as well, JAM cutting down the looking at the cutoff mark for admission into universities, polytechnics, and college of education. As well, we're seeing other stories in the paper, which we would love you to go through them and then drop your comment or your views on any of the story that is of interest to you. I'm Sarah, and I still have Rachel with me. Thank you so much,
You're
Rachel.
welcome, Sarah.
All right, let's continue the paper review looking at this day newspaper.
The big story on the paper: at last, federal government labor ends weeks of feud, settle for 70,000 naira national minimum wage. The writer says Tinubu says he's been careful not to make mistakes in driving economy along with labor. Federal government to transmit wage bill to National Assembly next week. Wage increase now to be negotiated every 3 years. We're accepting it with mixed feelings because of economy, says Ajero. Man, OPS and NANS react, comment President. To curb market distortions, bridge exchange premium gap, CBN approves additional FX sales to BDCs at 1,450 naira to a dollar. Naira depreciates to 1,630 naira at parallel market, 1,566 naira at official window. Apex Bank pegs sales to end users at margin not exceeding 1.5% above purchase rate. Finance bill seeks 3-year imprisonment for bank officials on willful tax default. You can start with the details on the front page. Tinubu's government exhibiting despotic trait, says National Assembly enabling it. A statement from Atiku. Details can be found on page 34. Concerns mount over retroactive taxation of banks' profit in finance bill. Edun is saying no plan to reintroduce beverage tax. Lawmakers slash salaries by 50% over nationwide hunger. Atiku is saying the demon is in your allowance, not salaries. Comments decision. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 5. We have Opebolo attacked in Benin, wounded as Edo government warns Shaibu. More details can be found on page 5. And that's all the news on this day newspaper.
First newspaper in Dume's removal, Tinubu seems set to only do one term, coming from Luke. Policeman killed in attack on Edo Deputy Governor Shaibu's convoy. Bill to establish local government electoral commission passes first reading in Senate. Conte confirms Oshime's imminent exit from Napoli amid PSG interests. Minister decries deep-seated corruption in Nigerian health sector. Federal government backtracks on university admission age allows 16-year-olds for 2024 session. More detail found in the paper. 70,000 naira minimum wage with Trendy revealed. We have labor leaders applaud Tinubu's bold move. We cannot pay 70,000 naira without support. OPS won as new minimum wage await National Assembly approval. And on hardship reps slash salaries by 50%. Sacrifice commendable but mere drop in ocean, says Atiku. And we are seeing from stage to station, Rude boy faces question about his wealth. You can find more detail in the paper. We have the picture story here. President Tinubu with Labour leaders, some ministers and aide at the announcement of the new 70,000 minimum wage. And that's all on First News newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, gunshots violence welcome Shaibu to Benin after reinstatement by court. One policeman killed, APC PDP chieftain trade blames. On food sufficiency, Southern Governors Forum to promote regional trade. National Assembly becoming enabler of executive recklessness, a statement from Atiku. Close down substandard educational institutions, Afe Babalola advises federal government. The big story, minimum wage, OPS cautious as federal government labor agrees on 70,000 naira. Minimum wage to be reviewed every 3 years. Why I intervene in negotiation as payment of withheld SSA and UNASU members' salaries. CBN resumed dollar sales to BDCs at 1,450 naira per dollar. Each BDC gets 20,000 naira. Nigeria's economy on path of growth, a statement from Omokri. More details can be found on page 3. Over 100 psychiatric doctors left Nigeria in 1 year, a report from the association. Reps reduced salary by 50% for 6 months over hardship in the land. Bill for local government independent electoral commission lands in Senate. What the new bill says, Northern senators shoot down South-South Development Commission bill. More details can be found on page 24 and 12. That's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On the Nation newspaper, work to begin on Abeokuta Ota Road, says Ogun government. Reps donate 1.08 billion naira to buy food for Nigerians. Lawmakers cut pay by 50%. As well, we're seeing bill on Council Electoral Commission tabled. National Assembly begins debate. CBN resumes forex sale to BDCs. APCON hails a seed of $20,000 per license. You can find that in the paper. Nigerian's economy on growth path, says Reno Omokri. You can find that on page 5. Federal government labor OPS OK 70,000 naira as new minimum wage. Bill set for transmission to the National Assembly. Workers get 36 high-capacity CNG buses. We have a caption here that says we will have to move ahead despite the situation. Coming from 62,000 naira to 70,000 naira, and then with the promise that we will come back soon to negotiate it. Detail found in the paper. How to Fire Up Patriotic Zeal in Nigerians by Ozodema. You can read that on page 4, and that's all on the Nation newspaper.
On Daily News Hub, JAMB approves 100 cutoff marks set by VCs and poly rectors, announces multiple top scorers in 2024 UTME. Edo's Day of Long Knives, gunmen rain bullets on reinstated Deputy Governor Shaibu's convoy in Benin. APC Guba candidate Opebolo hospitalized, police detail killed. 3 other policemen, many PDP APC supporters seriously injured. Minister bows to pressure, accepts 16 years as admission age for 2024. On the 423 billion naira probe El-Rufai petition, CJ accuses judge of bias. Sanction Wike before he throws Nigeria into chaos, Mahmoud tells Tinubu. Indume sack as Senate Chief Whip, good riddance coming from TDF. Over 100 psychiatric doctors left Nigeria in 1 year, report from the association. Nigerian terrorists aiding and Bazania rebels to smuggle arms into Cameroon. This is a report from an envoy. Biden cancels $1.2 billion more in student debt. Still on the paper, nationwide hardship, rep slash salaries by 50%. Why we accepted Tinubu's 70,000 naira minimum wage, coming from the NLC, and that's all the news on Daily News Hub.
I'm really worried about our psychiatrists leaving the country, Rachel. I know that, yes, a number of our health practitioners are leaving, but with the hardship, we need more of them. there's a need for mental care and all of that, and then we're seeing that over 100 of them have left Nigeria in 1 year. So just 1 year is what we're taking. So what happened before that 1 year? We will have more and more. No wonder you still have more patients in the hospital, very few hands to take care of them and all of that. So this is a call to the government to do something concerning our health sector, because we all need it. Let's forget, it's not all about those who are into drugs or people who have totally lost it that need a psychiatry. We
No,
all do
we
need
we
it
do,
once in
yeah.
a while. You have some things that are bothering you, depression, stress,
Yes.
and all of that. So trauma, we need to talk to them. So I'm hoping the government will look into that and then make sure that we retain the ones that are here. In as much as you're reviewing the salary, also look into the allowance of our doctors. Some of them, if you see what they're being paid, you just cannot help but wonder, after spending 8 years or more, some because of certain things, and then you'll not be appreciated for your effort. It's really not right. So we look forward to seeing the government doing something about psychiatry doctors as well.
And this also means that every department or arm of medicine in the country is suffering. We see that of nurses, we see that of doctors, we saw that of oncologists leaving also.
True.
And now we're seeing that the psychiatrists are also leaving. We've seen virtually every part of medicine being affected in this country, because the services are needed out there. In as much as is needed in Nigeria, nothing is being done to sustain the service, and you have to go and hustle and make ends meet at the end of the day. I believe this is the predicament of doctors and health practitioners in Nigeria. And I think they are left with no option, Sally, because if there were good or better options, they would remain. They are finding better options and they are not getting it on the shores of the country, and they have to go. There's so much work that needs to be done. We might think that this is one part of health that is underlooked. Yes, it is. No wonder mental health is not taken seriously as it should be. And of course, as a doctor, I would move to where mental health is being taken seriously. And I know that my services is being needed. If major health departments are not getting funded, are not getting their allowances, are not getting the attention they need from the government, what more do you think about a department that is small compared to other bigger ones? I believe that they are the ones that are feeling the blow of neglect more than any other part of medicine. So I just hope that the federal government, the government of Nigeria, the government of the day wakes up and just do the needful.
Because if they're not living, Rachel, they are dying because of the stress and the workload on them.
Sure.
So we hope the government does something about that. Let's take a look at the Business Day newspaper. Dangote flour mills Tolara make first EFCFTA export, ship linkers to Cameroon, native starch, textile to Algeria and Egypt. More detail found on the front page and on page 31. And we have 13 Nigerian airlines blacklisted for contract breaches, which we see this is the paper that they were talking about that are not really giving the right information. And we saw where these airlines were telling the Business Day to come out and apologize for saying that. Petrol landing costs at 1,117 naira. Precious NNPC secret subsidy. Labour threatens store petrol price hike. You can find detail in the paper. Here we are seeing as well Rema's HEIS Bowl experiment divides Afrobeat fans. For those who are into the entertainment and music industry, you can do well to read that for the fans there. Why we accepted 70,000 naira minimum wage coming from Labour, you can see their reasons on page 4. Banks face tough times on Tinubu FX gain tax as well. You can read that in the paper, and that is all on Business Day newspaper.
On Punch Spot Extra, the big story, Enefiok Udo Obong exclusive. My career as an athlete is something I wouldn't trade for anything else. Sometimes there are things I wish I had done differently. Some races I wish I ran differently. My Olympics to Saudi Arabia story. You can find details on page 6. Eagles dropped to 39 in latest FIFA rankings. World Drum Ajibade loot Falcon. Napoli PSG in talks after Osimhen's agreement. United complete Euro £52 million deal. Adeyemi addresses future amid Liverpool-Chelsea links. Details can be found on page 4. Zhang accuses Joshua of ducking rematch. Reds appoint Hettinger as slot assistant. More details can be found on page 4. On page wages, Mbappe's mom wants PSG. Ibrahimovic's son signs first Pro Milan contract. More details can be found on page 3. Top seeds through to Prime Atlantic Squash Open Semis. Adesanya box up ahead to places boot. African champion Wally confident ahead Scrabble showdown. Details can be found on page 2, and that's all the news on Point Sport Extra.
Well, that's how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome, Sarah.
Well, thank you to our viewers. Thank you to supporters and every other person that made this program a success. We look forward again to meeting you next week for another episode or another show on the Dailies. See you and have a blessed weekend ahead.